This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to my review to regular show seasons 5 to 7. I will be reviewing season 8 most likely tomorrow. I wanted to say that but for its own video because of it being a very complex storyline that, well, not exactly complex, but it's a very independent storyline with all the episodes kind of going together. So I wanted to put full effort into just making it into its own video. But looking at seasons 5 to 7, we still have some great storylines. And starting off, we have an okay one with laundry woes. And that's just when Mordecai tries to return a sweater to Margaret. And I think that was an okay one. There's another one that's okay with Silver Dude in Benson's car. A kind of funny one with Everything Made Burritos. Another okay with Wall Buddy. An interesting one with skips in time, where we kind of get a setup for the regular show movie, which I reviewed yesterday. But we also get to see, part of Skips' origin and who he used to be before it is later revealed. Yeah, this season, when we see the origin story of Skips, this is just a nice little preview for that and what will soon happen in the regular show movie. Although I don't know if they intended for it to be a setup for that at the time. One that I think that wasn't amazing was survival skills. But then there's another fun one with Terror Tales of the Park 3. And I'm planning on reviewing all of these next Halloween, most likely. And then there is Tance, which is just a nice one about friendship. And then Bank Shot is another. I think it's another okay one. We have Power Tower, which is another one that I think is just an enjoyable episode. A great one of the Thanksgiving special. And this one again, I think I'll have a review of this out around next Thanksgiving. So I look for this in November. The Heart of a Stuntman is another fun one. New Year's Kiss is one that is oddly unique and sets stuff up for later. But I do think with the start of Mordecai and CJ coming back into each other's lives with Dodge, this is done pretty well. And we show a good friendship between them with Portable Toilet. One of the few High Five Ghost episodes. The postcard is a pretty decent storyline. And Rigby in the sky with a burrito. I think that it's a fun episode and has a nice twist at the end. Journey to the Bottom of the Crash Pit's a pretty funny one just for the scene of Rigby flipping out. And then we get Saving Time, which is the Daylight Savings episode, which is a really fun one. Another really fun one is Guitar of Rock, where they go to the rock and roll underworld. Then we get a pretty depressing episode in the Skip story, where Mark Hamill takes center stage here, telling us the story of how Skips became immortal, and a pretty, depressing end with him losing the love of his life, and putting into other things like Chloric Vein and the Fists of Justice into perspective and how that all started. And then we get Return of the Mordecai and the Rigbys, and it has a fun twist ending where they, all passed out but still get the air conditioning they want. There is again another fun one with Bad Portrait, which shows up, what Mordecai will eventually become. And we have a pretty weird one with Eileen having to make a music video. That kind of, relates to this with us well, with my channel and me making, videos sometimes, you get something really weird. And this is a fun one where they edited together a horrible video and they're like, who made this? And they're like, oh wait, we made it. And then there's one that I think is, a little weird. I Like You High. You see the return of the Guardians of the Messages, I think. That's not their name. I can't think of their name though. And that's a fun one, and we get the beginning of the Mordecai and CJ relationship. And then there's a fun one with Playdate where the evil Thomas, well, the one that's the demon son of Death, is trying to sabotage Mordecai and CJ's first date. Expert Liar is one that I think is pretty interesting, where we get to see, well, Rigby try to prove that he is not just a liar. And then there is Catching the Wave. I think that honestly that one was a kind of bad one. Didn't care too much about it. Gold Watch is a fun one that definitely is pretty unique and weird. We have Benson, just wanted to get a gold watch, but all this crazy stuff happens. And then he time travels and nearly destroys the world and stuff just so he could be on time to work. Paint Job with Stealth Co. was a pretty fun one also. And then when they have to pick up the cake and it's some crazy thing and they surprise Mailer, I think that's a funny episode. It's not amazing, it's just a funny one. And then there's another okay one where Skip starts to date again. I think a really fun one when Thomas begins to try to prove himself so he doesn't lose his job. And this is probably the main thing that should have tipped you off that he is a spy, since he was able to put together this very complex plan. But there's no way you could have predicted that. And then you see the return of Skip's cousin Quips, and yeah, it wasn't an amazing episode, but it wasn't a terrible one. There was Tench Trouble, which I think is it's an okay one. And then Real Date, which is probably a pretty crazy episode. I think was a good one in Mordecai and CJ's relationship. And yeah, I think that their relationship was decent. And the only real problem to have with it is once stuff happens in season 6. So season 5 overall is a pretty good season, and I really do enjoy it. And going to season 6, we have some decent episodes to start up. We have Maxon and Relaxin, just a nice one for, Mordecai and some character development for him with his mother. There's New Girl on Campus, which shows Missile Man and High Five Ghost origins. And then Daddy Issues, which is a good one with CJ and her relationship with their father. We get another fun Terror Tales of the Park. And, those are always fun. Honestly, just a really crazy one with the end of Muscle Man. And I love how the twist ending, where they think he's dead, and then jumps out and starts dancing, and everyone is just like traumatized by it. Oh, that's just such a funny episode ending. And then there's Left with Your Back, which I don't think is amazing. And then we have one where I think is around when the Rigby and Eileen relationship starts, with Eileen flat screen, and that has, I think it says it's just an okay ending, but shows just Rigby becoming a better person. But then we get such a fun one, the Real Thomas. Oh boy, this one's just a crazy one where we learn Thomas is actually a Russian spy and is trying to take down the park, and we just get so much crazy stuff. Yeah, this episode, Real Thomas, is just a crazy one and definitely one of the best. It's when, regular show truly went nuts with their concept for a show, and it was just so fun. And we have two episodes that I have reviewed: White Elephant Gift Exchange and Merry Christmas Mordecai. So you can look at those ones in my Christmas episodes review. And then an okay one with Sad Sacks. We have another one, it's like an okay one with Park Manager's Lunch. And then honestly, I think it's just a funny one with Mordecai and Rigby Down Under where they get stuck in Australia. And then a fun one, but not as good as the one from season, from, I think it was like 2 seasons ago with Fool Me Twice. We have Married and Broke, and that was a pretty good episode. And a funny, crazy one is Icy Turtles, where you sort of get some crazy stuff like turtles going and murdering a bunch of people. And we start to see CJ and Margaret begin to get on good terms, although it doesn't really last. We get Format Wars 2, where we get another chaotic event where DVD shows up and they have to fight the internet, I think. I don't know if it was became streaming yet. And yeah, that was another just crazy one. I think it's great when they bring back the Format Wars because of how crazy this gets. There's a decent one with Happy Birthday Song Contest and Benson's Suit. Gamers Never Say Die is a pretty unique one, and 1000th Chopper Flight Party, I think. It was pretty good for most of it, and it was pretty, interesting how it ends, but yeah, I think that was a unique episode. Party Horse is honestly not that good. I'm getting some used to that. We'll know that, and we'll just move to Men in Uniform, which is a funny one that wraps up a storyline started seasons ago with Pops accidentally running over Big Head. And then we see that the guy actually died a few seasons later in season 8. So yeah, that's a pretty unique one where they're trying to keep the park open. We have Garage Door where the Excellent Knight shows up once again. And it's always great when the Excellent Knight shows up. And it's a pretty unique and fun one. And then there's just a great one with Brilliant Sundry Duck Crisis special. And I love the storyline the story of how they made this episode. I didn't actually know this originally, but the reason this episode was made was because there was a bunch of really bad regular show toys made, and no one really liked them, and this entire thing was just made to look at how bad they were. But yeah, that's such a crazy episode where the moon is destroyed, and so is all life on Earth. And yeah, that was just such a crazy, fun, and unique episode with how crazy it is. And yeah, it's just one thing that's regular show definitely going crazy. And then there is Not Great Double Date, and honestly, it's not a great episode either. So yeah, we have a Death Kwon Delivery, which I think is probably the weakest one with Death Kwon Do in it. And then another one that's okay is Lunch Break. But then I think one that's mainly good is Dumped at the Altar, although it kind of turns into a Mordecai thing. And I don't love how that ends, but I still think it ends in an okay way. Yeah, overall, I think season 6 is a pretty good season. It has some kind of bad episodes. It also has some pretty good ones. And yeah, there's just some crazy stuff that happens in this season. And there's stuff like the real Thomas, which is just, truly crazy. And going into season 7, there's also the regular show movie that happens sometime between season 6 and season 7, although I'm guessing, based on the first episode, Dumbtown USA, it either happens before the season 6 finale or after the season 7 premiere, since in Dumbtown USA, Mordecai is been in this place since he's been dumped by CJ, and there's no real chance for anything to happen with the events of regular show the movie, since he's been missing since the events of the season 6 finale. And then there's the Parky Awards, which I think is just a nice Benson episode. And then the Lunch Club, which is another nice Benson and Rigby episode this time. Local News Legend, I think, is the first and I think maybe only episode to really just focus on Margaret as a character. And we get our first episode really truly building up the big, reveals for later in the season and for the next season with the dome experiment, where there's some unique things that happen in there. But also, looking at the dome experiment, you don't really know where it's going to lead to, and sets up a lot of interesting plot points. We then have, I think, a string of decent episodes. They're not amazing. With Birthday Gift, Cat Videos, and Strike by Lightning. Yeah, I think they're all okay episodes, but they're not, the best. We then get Terror Tales of the Park 5, and as I said, Terror Tales of the Park is always fun. And then Return of Party Horses, another Party Horse one, which honestly wasn't too good. Sleep Cycle, I think it was a okay one. And then Just Friends. I think Just Friends was that was an okay one, and just trying to set up just the possibility to mess with us more of Mordecai and Margaret possibly going back together, but they never do. Which they do say in this episode, although they do leave it open for interpretation. But we later learn that it actually just stays like this. Benson's pig is a pretty unique one. And we have a pig who's a partner with a criminal. And Benson later takes his pig in. Although I do wonder how he was taken care of during the space seasons, since, well, there's stuff that happens with Benson not being able to be there. And then I think a good start of a Rigby arc is the Eileen plan, where he decides to go back to high school. And with this, I think that it was a really good storyline, and it shows Rigby wanting to try to improve himself truly and get a high school diploma. And this sort of begins one of the two plot lines that finish up this season with that, and later on the dome being put back on the park. Although that one is more of like a mystery that's happening in those episodes, just kind of to the side and not a huge part of it. Yeah, we have that, and then we have Hello China, which is a pretty crazy one where Rigby goes to China and gets a foreign language class in English. Which, I mean, I'm not sure how that technically would work, but it's still pretty funny. And then we have Crazy Fake Plan, where I get to see Rigby being actually a pretty good boyfriend to Eileen, and that was a real interesting one. And then there's Win That Prize, which is kind of a commentary on the television industry. And I'm not sure what they were trying to really say with it, but I'm guessing it wasn't a good thing, and I think it was an okay episode. And there's Snow Tubing, which is another decent episode. Chili Cook Off is, I think, a fine episode, and then there's Donut Factory Holiday, which isn't an amazing episode, and it's not a horrible episode. Then there's Jim Blonsky, which I think of all the Rigby and high school ones, this is probably the weakest one. It's still a good episode, but it is definitely the weakest of all of them. And then we have Guys Night 2, where we got our final major appearance of Thomas. And I think this was a really good episode to kind of, say goodbye to Thomas as a character. Since he kind of had to rush off at the end of the last episode he was in the season before. Gary's Synthesizer, California King, and Cube Bros are all okay episodes. I don't think they're, the best ones ever. Also not, the worst. But then we continue to some okay ones. We have, an okay one with Mailer's Package, a pretty good one with Rigby Goes to the Prom, with him being able to earn the respect of his father and finally be seen as, more than just a mess up. We also have a pretty funny scene where his dad bursts into the prom in his underwear, going crazy to try and find Rigby. And then we have the button, which begins sort of the final setup for the space storyline. And yeah, this is just a pretty crazy series of events we get to see, especially the mistrust and more of a mystery built up around the dome. Then we get to see them remake Muscle Man's shirt and have to fight a crazy Muscle Man sewed monster. And then there's Marvoldo the Wizard, and I think that this is an okay one. And then probably the most important one to setting up regular show in space is Pop's favorite planet, which begins to show off the mystery around Pops and that he has powers. And there will be nothing else touched on this really until season 8, so this is a pretty important episode for that. Then we have a decent not Pop's one, Benson one with Pam I Am, and I think it's just nice for Benson to finally be, getting into a relationship that he can actually not mess up and ends off screen like his previous one did. There's Gleam Lockdown, which was, I think it was a fine episode. PAP members only is also a fine episode, same with D's Keys. But then the season finale with Rigby's graduation day special is a really good episode, and I think it was well done. We have interesting storylines with Rigby going to be in, his high school graduation and has to give a big, massive speech. Mordecai is kind of, acting like a bad person and being jealous of Rigby, but decides to just help and support his friend. And then we get, some other interesting stuff. We get to see all of these storylines together where everyone is called back to the park and it is launched into space, which sets up the final season really well. And I think they did a good job with it. And yeah, I think that season 7, again, is another good season and sets up the extremely, emotional final season of regular show, which is really well done. And yeah, I think that regular show has another good stream of episodes, some pretty good seasons, and I think none of the seasons are horrible themselves. There are, some problems like something about Mordecai's relationship in season 6 being such a major focus, and then they just, decided to cut it out. But we do have some good stuff. Like, I think the relationship between Rigby and Eileen was probably the best one they did. It seems they both, cared for each other and wasn't just being so over the top and elaborate like Mordecai's were, because he was pretty bad at all of that. But it seems that Rigby was actually pretty good at it, and I like that how effectively we're getting, some good relationships, but also some good development for Rigby happening in season 7 and him truly growing as a person and not just being the irresponsible person he was. Although he does, definitely keep some of those traits in Season 8. We definitely get to see how Rigby has changed as a person, and I think that it was done really well. Yeah, I want to know what you think, and I hope you will be excited for my review of Season 8 of Regular Show. That'll probably be out tomorrow, but let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.